Zala was a girl of unwavering spirit, born into a world where the earth whispered secrets to those who listened. She lived in a quiet African village surrounded by golden fields, dense forests, and the distant hum of a river that carried the stories of ancestors. From a young age she had been her mother's shadow, learning the ways of the land, how to weave baskets, sing to the crops, and listen to the winds that carried messages from the spirits. Her mother, Imani, was known for her kindness, a woman whose laughter was like the first rain after a long drought. Every morning she would braid Zala's hair and tell her stories of the spirits that protected their people. The river spirits that blessed the crops, the forest spirits that guided lost travelers, and the wind spirits that carried the voices of the forgotten. Zala absorbed these tales like the earth absorbs rain, believing in the unseen forces that shaped their lives. But fate was cruel. One fateful season, a fever swept through the village like a relentless storm, taking Imani from Zala before she was old enough to understand the weight of loss. The once lively home turned cold, filled with silence where laughter had once lived. Her father had died years before, leaving her with only one guardian, her stepfather, Django. Django had married Imani out of convenience, never truly caring for her or Zala. With Imani gone, he saw no reason to keep the girl around. She was not his blood, not his responsibility. To him, she was a burden, a reminder of a woman he had never truly loved. While other children played freely under the sun, Zala was forced to work from dawn until dusk. She fetched water from the river, ground maize until her fingers ached, and scrubbed the floors of their small hut until they gleamed. The villagers saw her suffering but remained silent. Django was a man of quick temper, and no one wished to invoke his wrath. Only the village elders, those who had known Imani, whispered their sorrow for the girl. But words of pity did not fill Zala's stomach or ease the pain of loneliness. Still, Zala did not let despair take root in her heart. She found solace in the land, the same way her mother had taught her. She spoke to the trees, letting the wind carry her worries away. She knelt by the river, feeling its cool embrace as if it were her mother's hands soothing her. And at night, when the weight of her sorrows felt too heavy, she gazed at the stars, imagining that they were the spirits watching over her. But how long could she endure? How long could she hold on to hope in a world that sought to crush her spirit? What Zala did not know was that fate had been listening all along, and when the time was right, the spirits of the land would answer her prayers in ways she never imagined. Each day in Django's household was a test of endurance for Zala. From the moment the first rooster's cry broke the silence of dawn, she was up, sweeping the dusty floor, lighting the fire, and preparing Django's morning meal. He would sit outside their hut, stretching his legs lazily as he chewed on roasted yams, never offering her so much as a glance of gratitude. Zala fetched water from the river before the sun climbed high, balancing heavy clay pots on her head as she made the long journey barefoot. She gathered firewood from the outskirts of the village, her small hands clutching rough logs until her fingers blistered. She scrubbed Django's clothes in the river until her arms ached and cooked his meals while he napped under the shade of the great baobab tree. Django treated her worse than a servant. At least servants were acknowledged. To him, she was invisible unless there was work to be done or scolding to be given. If she was late in completing a task, she would feel the sharp lash of his tongue. If she spilled even a drop of water, his voice would boom through the house like a thunderclap. And if she ever dared to sit idle, just for a moment, he would remind her in no uncertain terms that she was lucky to even have a roof over her head. The village people saw her suffering. The women at the river noticed how thin she had become, her once full cheeks now hollow. The market sellers saw how she never carried a single coin, only fetching supplies for Django while he sat in comfort. The children, who once played with her when she was younger, now looked at her with quiet pity. But no one spoke up. Django was not a kind man, and his temper was as unpredictable as the dry season. He had a way of twisting words, turning accusations against those who dared question him. People feared him, and fear bred silence. Zala, however, found small joys amidst her hardships. Whenever she finished her chores, she would slip away to listen to the village elders. They told stories passed down from their ancestors, tales of spirits that roamed the land, watching over those with pure hearts. The land has eyes, one elder, Baba Ose, often said. It sees kindness and it sees cruelty. And it never forgets. Zala clung to those words. She liked to imagine that the spirits saw her struggles, that they whispered in the trees and wept in the rivers. She wondered if they would one day take pity on her. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, casting the village in a golden glow, Baba Ose stopped Django as he passed by the elders' gathering place. "You mistreat the girl," Baba Ose said, his voice steady. A pure soul like hers does not suffer without consequence. The spirits do not take lightly to such cruelty. Django laughed, shaking his head. Spirits? If they had any power, they would have saved her already. Baba Ose's aged eyes darkened. Perhaps they are waiting. Perhaps they will show their power when you least expect it. Django scoffed and walked away, dismissing the elder's warning. But Zala, who had overheard the exchange, held those words close to her heart. That night, as she lay on the hard floor of Django's hut, she closed her eyes and whispered to the spirits, asking them if they had truly seen her suffering. She dreamed of a life beyond this village, beyond Django's cruelty. But dreams alone could not change her fate. She had nowhere to go. Or so she thought. Because unknown to her, fate was already shifting, preparing to lead her toward a path she never could have imagined. Django had grown tired of Zala's presence in his home. Every day, her existence reminded him of his late wife, the woman he had once loved but who had left him with this burden. No matter how much he overworked her, she never complained. No matter how much he ignored her, she still looked at him with quiet resilience. And that infuriated him. One evening, as he sat under the great baobab tree, an idea formed in his mind, one that would rid him of Zala forever. He would send her deep into the sacred forest, a place few dared to enter. If she wandered in too far, she would never find her way back. The spirits of the land, if they even existed, would claim her, and his problem would be solved. That night he called Zala to him. She approached hesitantly, wiping her hands on her worn-out dress. Tomorrow, he said, his voice deceptively calm, you must travel to the sacred forest and gather the white moonleaf herb. It is rare and powerful. I need it for trade. Zala's eyes widened. The sacred forest was a place of mystery. The elders spoke of its ancient trees, thick vines, and the eerie silence that lingered between them. Some said spirits lived there, guiding the worthy and punishing the wicked. Others claimed that those who entered never returned. But Baba, she said cautiously, no one goes that deep into the forest alone. Django narrowed his eyes. Are you questioning me? His voice was sharp, filled with warning. Zala lowered her gaze. No, Baba. I will go. He smirked. Good. Leave at dawn. Do not return until you have found the herb. That night, as she lay on the floor of the hut, sleep evaded her. The elder's warnings echoed in her mind, but so did Baba Ose's words. The land has eyes. If the spirits truly watched over her, would they protect her? At the break of dawn, she set off, clutching a small woven basket. The path to the forest was long, and the trees soon grew taller and denser, their thick roots twisting like serpents beneath her feet. The deeper she went, the quieter the world became. The usual sounds of the village faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Even the wind seemed to whisper in hushed tones. Despite the unnatural silence, Zala felt something unseen, something watching. She pressed forward, her heartbeat steady but cautious. The further she went, the more she noticed the way the trees bent toward her, their branches shifting as though whispering secrets. The ground beneath her feet felt alive, pulsing gently, almost as if guiding her steps. She did not know that at that very moment, back in the village, Django was celebrating. He sat in the marketplace, drinking palm wine with the other men, laughing loudly. The girl is gone, he boasted. By now, the forest has swallowed her whole. The men chuckled, though some shifted uncomfortably. The sacred forest was no ordinary place. Few dared to mock it. One man, an elder, shook his head. The spirits of the land do not forget, Django. Be careful what you celebrate. Django only laughed harder, but deep down, an unease began to creep into his bones. For somewhere in the heart of the sacred forest, Zala's fate was already changing. Zala walked deeper into the sacred forest, her footsteps muffled by the thick layer of leaves and moss. At first, she clung to the hope that she would find the moonleaf herb quickly and return home, proving her worth to Django. But as she wandered further, the truth became undeniable. There was no moonleaf herb and she had been abandoned. A deep chill spread through her chest. Her stepfather had sent her here to be lost forever. She turned around, trying to retrace her steps, but the path behind her looked different. The trees loomed taller, their twisted roots forming barriers. The sunlight barely filtered through the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows that shifted with every step she took. Fear clutched at her heart. Strange sounds rustled in the undergrowth, low murmurs, distant animal cries, and something else, something she couldn't quite name. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching her, waiting. She clenched her fists, willing herself not to panic. The elders had always spoken of the spirits of the land, Ancient beings who guided the worthy and punished the wicked. Were they watching her now? She closed her eyes and whispered, "Please, spirits of the land, help me find my way." A sudden gust of wind blew through the trees, swirling around her, tugging at her dress as if answering her plea. When she opened her eyes, the path ahead seemed clearer. With cautious steps, she followed where the wind had stirred the leaves. After what felt like hours, exhaustion weighed on her limbs. Hunger gnawed at her stomach and her throat was parched. She leaned against a tree, feeling the rough bark against her skin, and sighed. Was this how she would die, lost and forgotten? Just as despair began to creep in, she heard something, a gentle trickling sound. Water. Summoning the last of her strength, she followed the sound until she stumbled upon a small clearing. Before her, a crystal-clear spring bubbled up from the earth, shimmering under the faint light that filtered through the trees. Large, ripe fruits hung from nearby trees, their fragrance sweet and inviting. Her heart pounded. Who had placed this here? The village elders often spoke of spirits who provided for those who respected the land. Was this their doing? She hesitated only for a moment before dropping to her knees and cupping her hands to drink. The water was cool and refreshing, soothing her parched throat. She plucked a fruit from a low-hanging branch and bit into its juicy flesh, sighing with relief. As she ate, the air around her shifted. The whispers in the wind grew clearer, almost like voices. The leaves rustled gently, though there was no breeze. She listened intently. It was as if the forest was speaking to her, guiding her deeper into its embrace. Zala stood slowly, determination lighting her eyes. She was no longer just a girl lost in the forest, she was part of something greater. And she would follow where the spirits led. As Zala stepped deeper into the sacred forest, a strange stillness filled the air. The whispers she had heard before faded into silence, replaced by an overwhelming sense of presence. She was not alone. From between the towering trees, a figure emerged, a tall, cloaked being with glowing eyes that shimmered like embers. Despite its imposing presence, Zala felt no fear. Instead, a deep calm settled over her. "You have entered a sacred realm," the spirit said in a voice that was both ancient and powerful. "The land has watched your suffering, and the spirits have heard your cries. But to earn our favor you must prove yourself worthy. 3 trials await you, only if you succeed will you find your true path." Zala took a deep breath and nodded. She had come this far. She would not turn back now. The first trial, courage. The spirit led her to a river unlike any she had ever seen. The water was dark, its surface eerily still. Strange shadows moved beneath it, their shapes shifting and vanishing before her eyes. "To cross this river," the spirit said, "you must trust your courage. The creatures below sense fear, and if you hesitate they will pull you under." Zala's heart pounded. The river stretched wide before her, with only a few scattered stepping stones leading across. She knew there was no other way forward. She placed her foot on the first stone, steadying herself. The moment she stepped onto the second, something brushed against her ankle. A cold shiver ran through her, but she gritted her teeth and kept moving. Halfway across, a dark shape rose from the water, a serpent-like creature with gleaming yellow eyes. It hissed, coiling as if ready to strike. Fear gripped her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She remembered the spirit's words. Fear would be her downfall. She exhaled slowly and stepped forward with confidence. The serpent tilted its head, watching her curiously. Then, as if satisfied, it slipped back beneath the water, vanishing without a trace. With steady steps, Zala reached the other side. The spirit nodded approvingly. The second trial, wisdom. Deeper into the forest, they arrived at an ancient tree, its trunk wide enough to shelter an entire family. The spirit gestured toward its twisted roots, where symbols were carved into the bark. "The tree of knowledge asks a riddle," the spirit said. "Answer wisely or you will be lost." A deep, creaking voice rumbled from the tree itself. "I have no eyes yet I see all. I have no mouth yet I speak truth. I am older than time but reborn each day. What am I?" Zala furrowed her brows, thinking carefully. The tree's words stirred something in her memory, something her mother used to say. Then it clicked. "A shadow," she answered. "It is always present, though it has no eyes or mouth. And each sunrise it begins again." The tree's roots trembled, and the symbols glowed with golden light. "You are wise," it said, its deep voice full of approval. "You may pass." The third trial, kindness. For the final trial, the spirit led Zala to a clearing where a young boy sat crying. He was thin and weak, his clothes torn, his face streaked with tears. "This is your final test," the spirit said. You must choose, continue your journey or help the one in need. Zala did not hesitate. She knelt beside the boy, offering him the last of her food and water. Are you lost? She asked gently. The boy nodded. I was abandoned, he whispered. Like you. Tears pricked Zala's eyes. She took his hand and helped him stand. You are not alone anymore. The moment she spoke, the forest around them shimmered with golden light. The spirit reappeared, its glowing eyes filled with warmth. You have proven yourself, it said. Courage, wisdom, and kindness, these are the marks of the chosen. Zala stood tall, knowing she had passed the spirit's test. Now her true destiny awaited. As the golden light of the forest shimmered around her, Zala felt a warmth unlike anything she had ever known. The spirit, now more luminous than before, gazed at her with solemn reverence. You have passed the trials, child, it said. And now the land shall reveal its truth to you. Zala's heart pounded. She had endured cruelty, abandonment, and fear, yet something deep within her told her that this moment was the turning point. The spirit extended a hand, beckoning her forward. The air around them shifted, and suddenly the trees themselves seemed to move. Branches twisted and bent, forming a pathway that had not been there before. Without hesitation, Zala followed. A sacred revelation. The path led to a hidden sanctuary, a place untouched by time. A glistening waterfall cascaded into a crystal-clear pool, and towering ancient trees surrounded a massive stone altar. Symbols etched into the rock pulsed with a soft golden glow. Zala felt something stir within her, as if she had been here before, though she knew it was impossible. The land remembers you, the spirit said, watching her closely. Because you are a part of it. Zala turned to face the spirit, confusion flickering in her eyes. What do you mean? You are no ordinary girl, the spirit continued. You are chosen. Long ago, before you were born, this land was in perfect harmony. The spirits guided the people and all lived in balance. But greed, cruelty, and ignorance poisoned the hearts of many, disrupting the harmony. Your stepfather, Django, is a symbol of this darkness. Zala clenched her fists at the mention of his name, but the spirit's voice softened. Yet there are always those destined to restore what is broken. The spirit gestured to the altar. And you, child, are one of them. A gust of wind swirled around her, carrying with it the whispers of unseen voices. Suddenly, memories that were not her own filled her mind. Visions of a past where wise rulers walked hand in hand with spirits, where the land thrived under their care. She saw a woman regal and strong, standing before the same altar. Zala gasped. The woman had her eyes. She was your ancestor, the spirit confirmed. A guardian of balance, chosen by the spirits to protect this land. And now, you have been called to continue her path. A deep sense of purpose settled over Zala. All her life, she had felt like she didn't belong, but now she understood. She was meant for something greater. The gifts of the spirits. Kneeling before the altar, Zala closed her eyes. A warm energy wrapped around her, sinking deep into her bones. When she opened her eyes again, she felt different, stronger, connected. The spirits had bestowed their blessings upon her. You now hold the ability to communicate with nature, the spirit explained. The wind will carry your messages, the trees will guide your path, and the rivers will whisper their secrets to you. Zala turned her palms upward, feeling a strange tingling sensation. She lifted her hand, and the leaves of a nearby tree rustled in response. She could feel the pulse of life in everything around her. You will also have the power to see the truth in others, the spirit continued. No lie will deceive you. This is a gift but also a burden. Use it wisely. Zala took a deep breath, letting the weight of her newfound power settle within her. She had been given something precious, and she vowed to use it to protect the land and its people. A journey back to the village. Zala knew it was time to return. She could not hide in the sanctuary forever. Her destiny awaited her in the village. The time has come, the spirit said. But know this. Django will soon face the consequences of his actions. The spirits do not forget cruelty. Zala nodded. She had no desire for revenge, but she knew justice must be served. As she left the sanctuary, the forest seemed to part for her, as if acknowledging her as its chosen guardian. She moved swiftly, her steps guided by the whispers of the wind. When the village finally came into view, she took a deep breath. She was not the same girl who had been cast away. She was something more, something powerful. And soon the village would know it too. The village square was packed with people. Every villager, young and old, had gathered to witness the moment that would change their lives forever. The air was thick with tension, a silence so heavy that even the wind dared not disturb it. Zala stood at the center, her figure illuminated by the soft glow of the evening fire. The villagers surrounded her, their eyes filled with awe and fear. They had seen her return from the sacred forest, more powerful than ever, and they had felt the spirits moving through the land. Across from her, Django stood trembling, his face pale, his body weighed down by the weight of his sins. He had spent years mistreating Zala, dismissing her as a burden, and when he had finally tried to rid himself of her, the spirits had intervened. Now there was nowhere left to hide. The accusation. Zala's voice rang out, strong and unwavering. "Django," she said, her tone measured, yet carrying the force of the spirit's will. "Do you deny what you have done?" Django swallowed hard, his mouth opening and closing as he struggled to find the words. I did what I thought was best for the village," he stammered. "She was just a girl, weak, a burden." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The villagers looked at one another, shame flickering in their eyes. Many of them had remained silent while Django had mistreated Zala, turning a blind eye to her suffering. But now, standing before her, they saw the truth. She had never been weak. She had been strong in ways they had failed to understand. Zala stepped forward, her gaze burning into Django's. "You cast me into the sacred forest knowing I would be lost," she said. "You wished for my death, yet the spirits protected me. They guided me. And now they have brought me back to reveal the truth." She turned to the villagers, her voice carrying across the square. "You all saw how he treated me. You all knew. But fear kept you silent." The villagers lowered their heads in shame. An elder, her wrinkled hands clasped before her, finally spoke. "We were wrong," she admitted. "We should have spoken up. But we cannot change the past. Only the present." Zala nodded. "Then let justice be served. The judgment of the spirits." A sudden gust of wind swept through the village, carrying with it a low humming sound, the voices of the spirits. The people shivered as the ground beneath them trembled. Django fell to his knees, his hands clasped in desperation. "Please," he begged, his voice breaking. "I was wrong. I see that now. I only wanted to protect myself. I feared the spirits. I feared losing control." Zala's expression remained unreadable. "And now you ask for mercy?" Django nodded frantically. "Yes, please. I will do anything." The villagers watched, their breath caught in their throats. They knew what Zala had endured, and they knew the spirits did not take kindly to those who wronged the innocent. The wind howled once more and Zala lifted her hands, her eyes glowing with an ethereal light. "Django, the spirits have spoken," she declared. "You have two choices, exile or servitude." Django's face twisted in despair. "Exile?" he echoed. "You would send me away to die?" Zala remained firm. "It is no different than what you did to me. The spirits will decide your fate beyond this village." Django shook his head violently. "No, please. Anything but that." "Then servitude," Zala said. "You will no longer live as a free man, but as a servant to this village, repaying the harm you have caused." Django hesitated, his pride warring with his desperation. He had once ruled this village through fear, but now he was at their mercy. The villagers murmured amongst themselves. Some wanted him gone, believing he did not deserve a second chance. Others, humbled by Zala's mercy, saw this as the truest form of justice, forcing him to serve the very people he had once ignored. At last Django lowered his head. I choose servitude," he whispered. "The rise of a new leader." The village elders stepped forward, their faces solemn. "So it shall be," one of them said. "Django will serve this village for the rest of his days, ensuring no soul suffers as Zala did." The people nodded, murmuring their agreement. The decision had been made. Then the elders turned to Zala. "And what of you, child?" one of them asked. "The spirits have chosen you and we see now what we failed to see before. You are strong, wise and just. Will you lead us?" Zala's breath caught in her throat. She had never imagined such a moment, never thought she would be anything more than an outcast. But looking into the eyes of the villagers, she saw hope. She saw change. Slowly she nodded. "I will lead," she said, her voice steady. "But not as a ruler of fear. This village will not be built on silence and suffering. We will honor the spirits, care for our land, and protect those who cannot protect themselves." A great cheer erupted through the village, a sound that carried into the night. The spirits whispered their approval in the wind, and for the first time in years, the village felt at peace. Zala had returned not as a victim but as a leader. Justice had been served and balance had been restored. And so, under the watchful eyes of the spirits, a new chapter began. The sun rose over the village, casting golden light across the land that had suffered for so long. The winds carried whispers of change and the people felt it in their hearts. Zala, once an outcast, now stood at the center of the village as its leader, not by force but by destiny. The elders gathered around her, their faces filled with reverence and humility. "You have been chosen, Zala," one of them said, his voice trembling with emotion. "The spirits have guided you back to us, and we accept you as our protector." Zala took a deep breath. She had survived betrayal, endured suffering, and walked among spirits. But now she faced a new challenge, leading a village that had once turned its back on her. Teaching the ways of the spirits. Zala wasted no time in fulfilling her role. The spirits had granted her wisdom, and she would use it to guide her people toward a better future. She gathered the villagers near the great baobab tree, a sacred place where the ancestors were believed to speak. "For too long, we have ignored the spirits of this land," she said. "We have taken from it without giving back, and we have allowed cruelty to fester among us. That will change." She taught them the ways of balance, how to respect the rivers, the trees, and the creatures that roamed the land. "If we listen," she explained, "the spirits will guide us. They will provide, but only if we honor them." She led them to the fields, where crops had withered under Django's rule. Kneeling, she pressed her palms against the dry earth. The villagers watched in astonishment as the soil darkened, as if awakening from a long sleep. A gentle breeze rustled through the air, and within days the land bore fruit once more. The people rejoiced, finally understanding the power of harmony. They planted new seeds with care, no longer seeing the land as something to exploit, but as a living force deserving of respect. Restoring the village's honor. But Zala's lessons were not only about the land, they were about the people. She reminded them of the importance of kindness, urging them to look out for one another. "No one shall be treated as I once was," she declared. "No child will suffer in silence, and no soul will be cast away. We are a family bound not by blood, but by the spirits that watch over us all." The villagers took her words to heart. They built shelters for the elderly, ensuring no one was left to struggle alone. They shared their harvest, making sure every mouth was fed. And they told the children the stories of the spirits, passing down the wisdom that Zala had brought back to them. Even Django, now stripped of power, played a part in the village's redemption. Under Zala's watchful eye, he worked the fields he had once ignored, carrying water to the people he had once looked down upon. His punishment was not exile or death, but the heavy burden of seeing the village flourish without him. He never complained, for he knew he had earned his fate. The legend of Zala. As seasons passed, the village thrived. Strangers from distant lands came to witness the miracle, seeking wisdom from the girl who had been lost and returned as a leader. Zala welcomed them all, sharing what she had learned, ensuring that the message of balance and justice spread beyond the borders of her home. The village elders, once reluctant to stand against cruelty, now sang her praises. Around the fires at night, they told her story, of the girl who had been cast away, only to return with the spirits at her side. The children listened with wide eyes, vowing to live by her teachings. "Zala teaches us that kindness is never wasted," they would say, "and that the spirits always see what is in our hearts." One day an elder approached Zala as she stood beneath the great baobab tree. "You have done what no one else could," he said. "You have restored not only this village but our spirits as well." Zala smiled, though she did not see herself as a hero. "I only did what was right," she replied. The elder nodded. "And that is why your name will never be forgotten." A message for the future. As years passed, the legend of Zala spread across the land. Some called her a queen, though she wore no crown. Others said she was chosen by the spirits themselves, a living bridge between the seen and unseen. But Zala never sought power or titles. She lived humbly among her people, teaching, guiding, and protecting, ensuring that no child would ever feel as she once had. Her story became a lesson passed from generation to generation. No act of kindness goes unnoticed, and no cruelty goes unpunished. And as long as her name was spoken, the spirits of the land would always listen.